think maybe even an area of some agreement. Go ahead, George.
Oh, I was just going to say that there's all sorts of wishful thinking going on across the country among liberal Democrats that Texas is going to go purple or blue, and it's just that. It's wishful thinking. Texas Republicans are undefeated and unchallenged over the last 20 years of state politics, and that's a better track record than the Alabama football team, which is saying something, and that's not going to change this year. It's going to be closer than it should be. But I'd be worried if this was 6 or 12 years from now, but not this year.
So you disagree with the Republicans we showed in the lead who are worried about this? You think they're wrong?
I do. I think that Cruz is going to win. I think he's going to win by 3 to 6 points. It's going to be tighter than it should be. But if you look at the primary voter turnout, the Republicans turned out roughly 350,000 more voters in the primary than the Democrats did. And there's just too many Republican voters. And at the end of the day, they're going to look at this race just like they looked at the Trump-Clinton race where Trump beat Clinton by 8 points. And they're going to say, based on ideology, based on our core values, based on that we're conservative, we're going to vote for Cruz, and he's going to go back to Washington and represent.
And George, you know, the thing about Ted Cruz that's different than a lot of other candidates is people just don't like him. And people in your party don't like him, and they talk about it publicly. And then if Republicans claim they like him, nobody believes him. Take a look at some of that recently.
If you killed Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the trial was in the Senate, nobody could convict you.
Lucifer in the flesh. I get along with almost everybody. Now, that I have never worked with a more miserable son of a bitch.
I am not endorsing Ted Cruz. I hate Ted Cruz. And I think I'll take cyanide if he ever got the nomination.
George, why don't people like Ted Cruz?
I loved your sound bites at the first where you had Trump and Cruz slinging mud back and forth at each other. It's highly entertaining. And, you know, I think Ted has really repaired his situation in the last year. I think the convention, when he refused to endorse the president, the nominee at the time, overtly then, and only did it later on in the election cycle, was an error, and I think he realized that. And he spent about the last 12 months going all over the state and building bridges.
You think he's more likable than some of the evidence? Let me get Wendy back in. Wendy, go ahead.
Well, let me say one more thing.
Well, I want to go back and forth, so I'm going to go to Wendy, and then I'll bring back to you, George. Go ahead, Wendy.
Great,
yeah,
you bet.
I can tell you what people don't like about Ted Cruz is they see that Ted Cruz is for Ted Cruz, 100%. And he's not representing the interests of Texans, and he's not in keeping with what people want to hear from their elected representatives and certainly from their candidates. There was a poll that came out today that shows them only 3 points apart. And the good news about these polls is that they continue to trend upward in Beto O'Rourke's favor. And Beto O'Rourke has caught fire with a group of people who typically do not vote in midterm elections. That's why I think he's going to win, because we are seeing an extraordinary turnout. Our Democrats doubled their turnout. Over 1 million more Democratic voters voted in this primary than had voted in the midterm when I ran in 2014. And I expect that that's going to get even stronger. And not just that Democrats are going to be turning out in bigger numbers, but a lot of those moderate Republicans and independents are going to come Beto's way because they do not like Ted Cruz.
I'm over on time. George, I'll give you a final sentence.
I was just going to say that Ted Cruz didn't endorse John Cornyn when he ran for re-elect last time around, and Cornyn's out there busting it for Ted Cruz and walking blocks and making phone calls, and I think that we're rallying around Senator Cruz, and I think he's going to win. I don't think
what I hear you saying is that the block is hot as they walk the block.